Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined by Jack Weinberger and Robert Ziggy Ziegler, back home in California. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, is enjoying the holiday season with their friends and families. Now, guys, it's week 17 of the season. Some big games coming up. Every game means a little bit more this time of year. Vikings-Packers on the schedule, moved to the 425 spot. It's going to be a lot of fun. So our Christmas wish did come true. We were able to get Andy Herman, the host, actually the owner of Pack-A-Day Podcast, a self-proclaimed food expert I saw on X, and a Green Bay Packers superfan. So Andy, thanks so much for joining us. We've had so many people in our comment section always talking about trying to get you on. So this really is kind of a Christmas dream come true for us.
Well, I appreciate that a ton. Thank you so much for having me on. Excited to chat Packers Vikings with you guys. And like you said, this is a really fun game, a really exciting game. And I think we're all just kind of looking forward to it, seeing what happens. Obviously, you guys have a ton to play for, trying to win a division, trying to stay alive in that number one seed, kind of scenarios. And for Green Bay, trying to avoid going down to the 7 seed and having a really difficult, kind of pathway to a potential Super Bowl. So lots to play for, but definitely, I think even more so on the Viking side.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a lot to play for on both sides. Before we get into that real quick, I just wanted to show you, I thought you'd enjoy this. As you know, Ziggy and I are big Vikings fans. Jack is a big Steeler fan. And as we've kind of picked up this Packer audience over the past year or two, unfortunately for Ziggy and I, we continuously find ourselves in situations where people are aligning us with the Packers, and it's actually leaked in to my personal life and at home and Christmas presents where, just wanted to show you this. This is what I was getting for Christmas, Andy. Green Bay Packers
Look
slippers.
At those.
I get cheese heads. I've got Packers hats over here. I have a little necklace. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with this. I mean, if you can get any enjoyment, it's that. I mean, my entire personality is turning into the Green Bay Packers. It's a nightmare.
So how do you reconcile this? Is it like kind of like fun annoying, or is it annoying, or is it like, because there sometimes comes a part where, like, so for example, when you like scout players for like the draft, right? There are certain players that like I've scouted that have become Minnesota Vikings that I love them coming out of the draft. Mm-hmm. And then like you kind of keep an eye on them and you're like, oh man, I can't cheer for that guy, but I really freaking like that guy. Obviously Aaron Jones being a member of Minnesota, like there's a little bit of seepage sometimes with some of that stuff, but where are you at? Where's your head at with all of this?
Ziggy, I'll let you answer it too here, but like, it's weird because I actually have softened up on Green Bay a bit where I'm watching a game and we know that our numbers will do way better if the Packers win. It's like they're playing the Saints on Monday Night Football and I'm like, I kind of need Green Bay to win this game. Like Green Bay winning this would be great. As long as it doesn't interfere with the Vikings path, I've softened up a little bit, but it's still very uncomfortable.
Well, the thing that makes this so hard is, in our experience, Packers fans have been so darn nice. Like, I didn't really know this. I picked up football relatively late in my life. And it's, we make videos for all sorts of different teams, and you get a sense of who the fan bases are. It'd be a lot easier if Packers fans were a bunch of jerks, right? You say, well, they're winning, but whatever, we don't care. But sometimes I think they say the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I mean, for me, it's quite awesome. Like, really not being an NFC North fan of really any team, being a completely opposite conference in the Steelers. Now to see a whole entire fan base, for the most part, commenting and watching our stuff.
Oh, you can see me sad.
For me, it's like being on cloud nine.
Yeah, Andy, our channel does best when Ziggy and I are super sad. It's kind of the sick, twisted like reality that we're in, but our misery generates the most views. So I don't know how that happened.
Andy, can I ask you a quick question? Jack, by the way. Have you ever been to a place called Sobelman's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
I don't think I have.
It's like a burger.
It's super familiar. Like, I know if I looked it up, I probably would know exactly what it was, but I actually don't think I've been there. I know it's a very famous place in Milwaukee, but I don't think I've actually been there.
I was there a year ago. A couple years ago, actually, had my first ever spotted cow in Sobelman's.
Okay.
And I will say it was the best burger I've ever had. So if you get the chance to head out there, it's big in Milwaukee, I'd head out there. Sobelman's.
Yeah, I've not. I'm looking at it now. I have not ever been to Sobelman's. I like Milwaukee's like my home away from home. All my friends, or like my closest friends, live in Milwaukee, so I'm down there a decent amount. Obviously go to Brewer games every year, Bucks games every year, and do a variety of different stuff. Was just down there for an Admirals game. So that's nice. Like kind of my home away from home. But no, I've never been to Silverman, so I'll have to do that.
It's good stuff.
You, Jack, with a little recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite.
So, okay, we got a bunch of questions for you, Andy, a lot related to the game. The very first one is a little more big picture Vikings-esque, and it's for you as a Packer fan. You know, you're actually the first real true Packer fan, despite what people say about me and Ziggy, that we've had on this podcast. So, throughout the season, I think the Lions and the Eagles have been sort of the teams that most people are picking to go to the Super Bowl or as the most dangerous, and here the Vikings and Packers are kind of surging towards the second half of the season. Well, I'm curious where you stand as a Packers fan. How dangerous do you actually think Sam Darnold and the Vikings are? Do you view them as a legitimate threat the same way you would the Lions and Eagles?
This is a true story. I'm not making this up because I'm on the show. I talked about this. I forget if it was on the podcast or I do a radio show as well. Forget which one I talked about it on. I think there's a real world in which the Vikings and the Packers are the two best teams in the NFC. I really do. And I think Detroit going into the season, and if everyone was healthy, is the class of the NFL. I think their depth, their talent, their coaching, like all of it together, I think they're the best team in the NFL. However, or at least they were, I think the injuries are just catastrophic for them. I give them all the credit. They're still continuing to fight. They might still win this thing. They might still win the North. They're still very talented, but I do think it's a degree different with all the injuries that they have right now. I've never quite trusted Philly, although I'm beginning to trust Philly even more. They're really freaking good. And obviously the Jalen Hurts injury is a little bit cloudy right now, but my assumption is he'll be back by the playoffs. Saquon Barkley and that offensive line is an absolute cheat code. AJ Brown's been a cheat code, and their defense has been really freaking good too. The two young defensive backs have been phenomenal for them. Jalen Carter's been phenomenal. So, they're definitely on my radar as well. But I don't think, I think there's this thought maybe from some people in Minnesota or even from some in the national media where Green Bay is this fraudulent team and quite frankly, and there's a level of truth to it. When they've gone against Minnesota, Detroit twice, Philadelphia, they're 0-4. So they have to overcome that and they have to prove that. And then from Minnesota's standpoint, whether it's just the Sam Darnold connotation or whether it's some of the injuries to Darrison, whatever, but they're just, again, these, small victory merchants or whatever. I just don't see it that way. I legitimately think these are two of the top teams. The only thing to me that could really hold them back potentially is the fact that they might have to both be road wildcard teams.
Yep.
And it just really sucks that both of them are buried in the NFC North right now. And you could end up having both these teams have to go through just ridiculous paths to the Super Bowl on their way there. But I've even talked about, to me, how this game goes and then what happens in week 18, you guys against the Lions and Green Bay, just hopefully picking up that win against Chicago, obviously. If you guys end up with the 5 and Green Bay ends up with the 6, it wouldn't be stunning to me if we talked about Packers Vikings in Minnesota for the NFC Championship. And if somehow Green Bay got the 5 and Minnesota got the 6, it wouldn't be stunning to me if somehow it was Minnesota, Green Bay in the NFC Championship in Green Bay. So I do think these final 2 weeks of the season could be very important for obviously both of these franchises.
That would be very, so we have this term on our show, Andy, where we refer to the Packers and a team like my Steelers as a blue sky franchise. Things always seem to, go their way. And a team like Minnesota, the Browns, the Jets as, the dark cloud franchises. Things just seem to always go bad. Like the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, perfect example. And I was just laughing at that because if a team as good as Minnesota can get the number 6 seed and Green Bay's there as the 5, knowing the Green Bay Packers, I mean, that just lines up perfectly for a chance to host the NFC Championship game in Lambeau Field there. I mean, that's a blue sky moment there. Am I right? Am I wrong?
That's why this game's so important.
Maybe. But I think, it's so funny because you guys have obviously had your share of postseason heartbreaks. We don't need to necessarily go into Blair Walsh or was it Tracy Porter picking off Brett Favre? Is it Tracy Porter? Is that the right name?
Tracy Porter. We got Gary Anderson. Yeah. The laundry list is remarkable.
There's a laundry list, right? So I know you guys have had that as well. But it is kind of crazy from a Packers standpoint of the amount of ridiculous, heartbreaking losses. Like when you've had 30 years of unbelievable quarterback play, right? Like you got 2 Super Bowls out of it, and I don't think anyone's trading that for anything. However, some really just stick the knife in, twist it, then stick it again just for good measure, losses. And true. So yes, it would be this unbelievable thing where Green Bay would face Minnesota at home for an NFC Championship. But man, the most nervous I've ever been for a game in my life was Packers Bears NFC Championship, because not only if you like lose that game, not only do you not go to the Super Bowl, but now like your arch enemy is now also going to the Super Bowl. So it's just like this unbelievable, awful like feeling of like this has so much stakes to it. And it would feel like that in that game where it's like, yes, Green Bay playing at home against Minnesota. They already got the heavy lifting done potentially with either like Philadelphia and Detroit out of the way. And now you've got this matchup at home and it would feel great. But like, man, on the other side, if you F that up in any way, shape or form, now Minnesota's going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, oh my God, that is the worst thing ever. So it would definitely be yes, blue sky. I would take it. I would sign up for it right now, but I would not enjoy it in the moment. I don't think.
You know, the Packers have had their fair share of miserable, heartbreaking losses as well.
It would be distasteful of us to bring up, for instance, like Brandon Bostic. I mean, that would just be...
I brought it up. You guys, it's fair game. It's fair game.
No,
4th and 26, Brandon Bostic, NFC Championship, Corey Webster, Favre in overtime, throwing that one and then going into overtime. Like just all the, like there's too many... Terrell Owens at the end of the 49ers game, catching the ball. Like it's been too many. It's too painful. Blocked punts in a divisional round game. Against, 49ers. Like, yeah, fun times.
I believe that year you beat the Bears was the year you beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Correct.
And then I was upset for a few days.
Jack was crying in the bathtub.
Yeah, I kicked people out of my house after that game.
Not a great, obviously even as a Vikings, I don't think the Vikings were in the postseason that year. I'd have to think back on it.
Probably not.
But
probably not.
Either way, it's always painful, I'm sure, to see Green Bay win, and then obviously as a Steelers fan, nightmare fest.
Oh yeah.
So I guess as I'm thinking about this matchup, as we're talking about the Packers and the Vikings possibly making a run to the championship game, it seems like for the Packers it all starts with Jordan Love. And since the bye, I know people talk about Toyotathon Love. He posted whatever that thing was in the Toyotathon sweater, but he's been lights out in the past few games. Right, he's taken 1 sack in the last 4 games. I know the Saints game wasn't like the best Jordan Love game ever, but it was good. They didn't need Jordan Love to play the best football. So I'm sitting back and thinking here, if you're the Vikings defense, you're 31st in the NFL in giving up explosive passing plays. You've really struggled at controlling what opposing wide receivers and quarterbacks can do. What are you expecting from Jordan Love this game? What do you think might be a game plan the Vikings will be looking at for containing him?
Yeah, if I were Minnesota, it's really interesting because obviously, Flores loves to blitz, loves to simulate blitzes. I think they had a pretty good game plan against him last time, although it was with a far less mobile and a far less healthy Jordan Love in that moment. But they showed so many different pressures and didn't bring so many pressures. And then the moment that they brought one and actually did it, it caught them off guard. And that to me was something that was really interesting where it was almost like, hey, we're going to do it. Oh, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And then all of a sudden it almost gave him, I think, a false sense of security. And then they brought it and he wasn't necessarily ready for it because he's like, oh, you're just going to not bring it again. And I honestly think that is probably kind of a way to go about this again. If I would probably like on the very first play, I'm just going to bring a ton of people just to be like, yeah, this is what's going to happen all day.
Spook them
I think I would actually, what's that?
To spook them a little bit.
Yeah. Just to like just as a reminder, hey, we're going to be here all day. But then I think I would go more 4-man rush. Now you might switch, like you might show a lot and not be able to tell which 4 are coming and things like that. But I think I would go a lot more 4-man rush and drop into zones. I think that's a little bit of a better game plan against Jordan. I know early in the year he was struggling with some of the blitz stuff. That to me was very, very, very injury related and not Jordan Love related. And really, it's shown that way since the bye week. He's been fantastic against the blitz. So I think I would blitz him at my own peril more often than not. I would do it again early just to remind it, be like, hey, this could come at any moment, but then just kind of pick my spot maybe 1 or 2 times the remainder of the game, cover a little bit more and try to stop the run as best as I could. Josh Jacobs has become such a huge focal point of this offense that I'm going to try to stop Jacobs, cover as many as I can, hope I can get home with 4. And if so, that's going to be my best point of attack and hopefully get a turnover along the way.
Yeah,
I like that you mentioned Josh Jacobs because going back to the Seahawks game the Vikings played, one of the things the cornerbacks really struggled with, if you're looking for ways to target this defense, in obvious running situations when Geno Smith dropped back to pass, the cornerbacks really struggled when they were expecting run, when they're expecting Kenneth Walker, whoever, to get the ball. Going back and watching the film, I found like Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore really struggled on those kinds of plays. So I think establishing Josh Jacobs early, making the Vikings expect the run and then bringing out pass plays could be a real vulnerability for this defense.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's funny, Andy, going back, I don't know how much Vikings film you've been watching this season, but in particular, the game that stands out to me against the Rams, back on Thursday Night Football, the second loss of the year for the Vikings.
Sure.
It was just a game where I felt like no matter what the Vikings did, they could not get to Matthew Stafford. Like bringing the house, whether it was 4-man rush, whatever it was, they couldn't get to him. And, Stafford's one of the best in the league. He's able to pick you apart. So it's funny, like when you're saying you'd go 4-man rush here, just the importance of getting home to Love and making him uncomfortable, because he's one of those guys. You can kind of say the same for most quarterbacks, but I really think for Love, when he gets in a role, that Packer offense has, the weapons they have are unbelievable. And Watson being out, or I'm assuming he's going to be out, it's probably going to hurt him quite a little bit. But like the Packers offense, when they get going, you saw in the first Packer-Viking game, it took it was a 21-point game at the start of the fourth quarter, and it was 3 minutes later, you blink your eyes, and it's a 6-point game, 7-point game. So I think just one of those things for the Vikings is Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner's kind of been coming on lately. Winning in those matchups against the Packer offensive line, easier said than done. But they're going to have to win a few because, right now, I'm a little scared of Jordan Love. I'm going to be honest. I think the Packers are probably, if the Vikings got the 1 seed, I'd probably be more scared of the Packers coming into their building than the Lions or the Eagles right now.
Yeah, the first time these two teams played, the score was close. Minnesota, for the most part, beat them down. But
until the start of the fourth quarter.
Right,
just like a 5-minute stretch there.
But then this was before Jordan Love was healthy again. This is before Jordan Love's time of year, so to say.
Toyotathon.
Before the second half of the year, before Toyotathon. And you look at these two recent similar common opponents, both teams having played in Seattle in a night game recently. And Green Bay looked like a much better team versus them than Minnesota did. You tell me right now who I think the better football team is with a healthy Jordan Love. I love the fact Minnesota's at home, which is we'll probably pick them, but I think Green Bay is a better team.
Wow. All right. It hurts a little bit, Jack.
I'm sorry to say that. We got Andy. I got to show Andy some love, though. He came on our podcast
I appreciate
today.
it. To me, again, I think you could put both of these in a game 100 times, and I think they both probably win pretty damn close to 50 of them. I think they're just two very evenly matched teams. Jefferson and Addison is just such a pain in the ass. That is just not fair. It is so difficult to have to kind of game plan and go against. You add in Aaron Jones, and then obviously what Hawkinson can give you over the middle. It sucks. I hate injuries. I wish we could turn injuries off. From a Lions standpoint, from a Christian Darrisaw standpoint, Jair Alexander, has been missing almost the entire year for Green Bay. It just shows, again, the depth that these three teams have because they've been able to navigate a lot of injuries throughout the course of the year. But just again, what Minnesota is able to do offensively. And I have, it's stupid how much I love Kevin O'Connell, especially.
Oh, dude.
And then,
he's the best.
He's unbelievable. And what he's been able to do on offense, and then obviously Flores on defense, just coming out with something creative. The thing I love about Flores is it may or may not work in any given moment or any given game, and you're not quite sure. But it's not fun to go against, and it's a wild card. It's just a constant wild card, and good luck preparing and scheming for it. And again, you might get some good stuff, you might get some bad stuff. Players aren't always going to be in the perfect positions. It just doesn't matter because it's so chaotic. And I think more often that chaos turns into good things. But I have so much respect for the coaching staff in Minnesota. But like I said, maybe Green Bay's, I think, it's a slightly better overall team with maybe a little bit better depth right now. But man, like I say, you play that game 100 times. Your guess is as good as mine who ends up winning 51 of those.
Even the Lions game, you talk about the chaos of Flores. The first quarter of that, the Vikings kind of dominate that game. Then second and third quarter, we can't stop anything. It was unbelievable watching it. I think Goff had 20 straight passes completed. And then the fourth quarter, we come back in. Even within games, it's not even game to game. Within individual games of Brian Flores, you have great, and you have, oh God, what are we doing? But generally speaking, he's been amazing since being in Minnesota. Going back to Jefferson and Addison, that's our calling card, and the injury report in the secondary for Green Bay right now. We'll see if Jair's there. Evan Williams is out. I know Bullard's questionable. It looks like he might be out probably will be out for the game, but still too close to call. So with that being said, Andy, in a perfect world, they're all healthy and we have a great game right here. With that being said, if you're Jeff Hafley getting ready for Justin Jefferson, who it seems like, even when you go to take him out of the game, you have Jordan Addison can have 160 yards like he had against the Bears, and Hawkinson's one of the best in the league. How would you game plan specifically around Jefferson to try and slow them down? Because he can burn you whether or not you're double teaming him or not.
I think almost in a way, it's this weird sense of like, you almost let Justin kind of get his and just say, well, he's not going to go for 400. I don't think and just make sure that you're really kind of containing everything else, making sure that Aaron Jones in the running game doesn't get going, making sure that Hawkinson's not available over the middle, making sure that it can't be both, right? You can't let Jefferson and Addison eat, meaning if you need to take out Addison, make sure like, even if you double Jefferson, or even if you have like great coverage on Jefferson, he still might beat you. So I don't know how much time, effort, and energy I almost even spend over the top to be like, oh, we just got to make like, I kind of want to make sure nobody else is also eating. If Justin Jefferson goes for, I don't know, 10 and 180 and 2 touchdowns or whatever, like, all right, I kind of expected that.
Yeah, that's
but
how
I can't also have TJ Hawkinson go for 80 and a touchdown. I can't also have Addison go for 120 and a touchdown or whatever. I can't let Jones have over 100 yards. So I almost go into this game and what Green Bay's done an unbelievable job of, even going against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and some good wide receivers on the outside, they've really limited the outside wide receiver production. Same against Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. They haven't allowed much on the outsides. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They're stopping that. They're not allowing explosive plays down the field. They're fantastic at not allowing the 30, 40, 50, 60 yard plays, either in the run game or in the passing game. And they've been borderline fantastic against the run as of late. What's very vulnerable is the middle of the field. However, these last couple of weeks with Edgerrin Cooper back in there, that's changed things a little bit, and it's been harder in the middle of the field.
He's a beast.
My guess
he's been awesome.
Yeah,
Cooper.
He's really, really fun. And my guess is Green Bay's still going to be vulnerable a little bit more of the middle of the field, but they're going to use this very similar game plan. We don't want you to win on the outsides. We don't want you to win deep. We don't want you to win with the running game. You're going to have to throw over the middle of the field. Now, Darnold and Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and checkdowns to Jones are all that's if you're Minnesota, you're okay with that. You don't hate living in that world. But if you're Green Bay, you're trying to dictate and you're trying to get a tip pass that, goes for an interception, or, Hawkinson catches one over the middle, turns, and McKinney punches one out, whatever it might be. You're hoping to get a couple turnovers that way in the meantime. And that to me is going to be a very similar game plan, though, of try to limit on the outside. It's going to be a ton of zone defense, and they're going to switch it up. They're going to disguise everything. And this to me very much comes down to Justin Jefferson's going to get open a lot. I think on almost any play, there's going to be an opportunity for him to get open. Can the pass rush beat the Vikings offensive line before maybe Jefferson gets there open and gives Darnold that opportunity to get the pass off to him? It's almost going to be a race every single play of like pass rush versus how long it takes Justin Jefferson to get open. And hopefully Green Bay can win that race a few times.
That is a good point about, Justin Jefferson is on pace to be one of the best receivers the league has ever seen. Like, he's kind of he's going to do his thing. He's going to put up his numbers. He'll get his catches. He'll get his yards. If it's anybody else as well outside of him, that's when it gets super dangerous. A couple weeks ago, it was Jordan Addison who popped off, right? And Minnesota blew the doors off of somebody. Like, if it's Justin Jefferson and somebody else alongside of him, that's curtains closed. Like, this game, to me, there's weapons all over the field on both sides. Good quarterback play, good offense is tough to stop. This game will come down in that late third quarter, fourth quarter. Which one of these quarterbacks, who are both prone to it, makes that big, which defense can force that big turnover? Which quarterback makes that big mistake before the other quarterback does? It's that big mistake, that big turnover wins this game.
So, Andy, we know you're a busy guy. You have a very busy schedule. We're a couple of rapid fire questions here, score prediction, and then we're out of here. Here's what I'm thinking right now. So for you as a Packer fan, I've always kind of wondered this question for Packers fans. Adrian Peterson, Randy Moss, Justin Jefferson. Those to me are the best Vikings players, especially offensively, of the past, 25 years, 30 years or so. As a Packer fan, which one of those guys, if you had to rank them 1 to 3, who has got you most nervous going into the Vikings games each season?
That's a phenomenal question. I think from a pure terror standpoint, Randy was the most terrifying because in his prime, it didn't feel like there was a way to stop him. Meaning you could double, even triple cover him at times, and you just had the ability to throw the ball up to Randy Moss and he was still going to come down with it. I think that was and there was that game in the rain against Green Bay. I was there. And I think he had 3 touchdowns in that game. And you just watched it live. It might have even been his rookie year. Was
that the Monday night game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rookie year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was his rookie year.
You were at that game?
I was at that game. I was obviously very young, younger at the time. But yeah, I was at that game, and it was just terrifying watching him in real time, being like, I don't know how you stop that. With Peterson, it was almost equal level of terrifying, but you kind of knew he could only beat you in the run game. It wasn't ever going to be in the passing game, and there wasn't that variety to his game. So you at least had this, even if it was fool's hope or false hope, you at least had this false hope of like, all right, if we've got our run fits right and we've got everything, like maybe we can stop. Because we've seen it, like Packers against Barry Sanders in a playoff game once famously limited him to -1 yard. And like, if everything's right, you feel like maybe you could get, now it never really worked out that way all that much, but you kind of had this false hope at least of like, hey, if we can just stop the run or have everything right on our end, we could maybe stop it. But it was still very, very terrifying. The weird thing about Justin Jefferson is there's almost and I know that he's still flashy and like he's unbelievable. Like there's almost a quiet assassin piece of it where like
completely agree.
There's never like one thing. Like with Peterson, you knew his signature runs and just running through faces and just breakaway speed. With Randy Moss, he could out jump you and just fly past you as well. With Jefferson, you're looking at it, there's nothing that you necessarily look at and be like, God, that's terrifying. Like that he's like the most unstoppable, most dominant player ever. But then you go against him and you're like, oh God, that's the most unstoppable dominant
just
player.
Can't guard him. Yeah.
Like ever. But you don't necessarily go into it fearing it as much. And then you see it again in real time. You're like, oh, I forgot how effing good this guy is. So yeah, I'm going to go Moss, Peterson, Jefferson, but man, again, reorganize them any way you want. And you're not wrong. I don't think in any way, shape or form.
It's amazing that, we haven't been able to win anything really substantial when you talk about those 3 guys. I mean, those are once in a lifetime players for most fan bases. And we've had them kind of
Barry Sanders and Kelvin Johnson similarly in Detroit. Well, those are 5 of the best players that I've seen in my lifetime in the division, constantly after going against them. And I mean, how many playoff wins total do Peterson, Jefferson, Moss, Kelvin Johnson and Barry Sanders have? Like it's not a ton, which is just crazy to think about.
Peterson too. It's like the shame about Adrian for me at least was there was only so much that Christian Ponder and like Michael Floyd were gonna do when you're going up against them. There was this kind of just disheartening accepted defeat you had.
Was there a Joe Webb playoff game?
That was the worst, man. After we snuck in.
That was in Lambeau at night.
Yeah, Ponder had the game of his life.
I was there at that one too.
Ponder had the game of his life in the week 17. And that's when Adrian came up, 7-9 yards short of the record. And for the first time, really ever and only with Christian Ponder, I was thinking, all right, he actually might be okay. Like to go into this game. I think it was like an hour before the game too. They announced he was out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was very close.
And you could tell, I'm sure you could tell being there within the first 5 minutes, Joe Webb was not going. Joe Webb couldn't throw the ball. He couldn't throw the ball. Okay, one more question, then the prediction here. I know what you're going to say to this, but I would like to see if there's a world where you don't answer it the way I'm expecting. Between the Vikings and the Packers, who do you believe in more to get to the Super Bowl?
Packers. For sure.
All right. That was a given. I just wanted to see if there's a world we catch them.
There is a world, and I think I've, for the most part, been overly complimentary of pretty much everything Vikings. Not again, just to appease. Like I legitimately feel that way.
But we're mending. Our 2 shows are mending the relationship here. We're working to fix it.
But I will say this, not to again dig a dagger in any way. Until I see Minnesota not choke away something at the end of the playoffs, like there's just sort of a feeling in the back of my mind of like, they're still going to Minnesota this at some point. And maybe this isn't it. Maybe this is the year that they don't do that. But it just feels like usually more often than not, you get to a certain point and they just don't know how to get across that final finish line. And from a Packers standpoint, hopefully this is not the year that they figure it out. I would love it for not to be the case. But again, I do think they're a very, very good football team. I think they're one of 6 or 7 teams that can still win this thing, and they're not probably number 6 or 7 on my list. So, I think they're fantastic, and it's going to be interesting to see how their season ends, and hopefully from a Packers standpoint, how they do figure out a way to choke it away at the end.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
Minnesota's got a new strategy this year of just we're adding the Sam Darnold curse into the mix and hoping the 2 curses
double negative
each other out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the doubles. Good strategy, Ziggy. All right, guys, game predictions.
You need to get a Viking player on the Madden cover in like the last second here of like upgrade the cover and some. Just get as many curses as you can just to like counter curse themselves.
Put Darnold on the cover. I wonder what would happen there. That would be
get his leg in.
I think the world ends. I think the world ends.
All right, so game predictions for this. We'll go Jack to Ziggy to me to Andy. Jack, Vikings, Packers. Who you got?
Game predictions. So I said I think Green Bay's the better team. However, Minnesota's at home late in the year. I'm going to go Vikings 27-23 over the Packers. 27-23 Vikings.
All right, Ziggy.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard what Andy said. Are you telling me that Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are winning the must-win game to have a chance at the 1 seed? We beat the Packers earlier this year. I can't see it happening twice. I'm going Packers 30, Vikings 27. I think it's going to be a close one, but you're going to have a kicking game this time, and that'll be all the difference.
Yeah, the kicking game in the first one was enjoyable, at least from a Viking standpoint. I can't believe the line is flipped to Packers 1.5. I feel like the Vikings can't do anything to get even the respect to Vegas this season, and Green Bay does scare me right now, though, so I understand it. I'm with you, Jack. I'm very, very similar to you. I think the Vikings are going to win 27-24. I think it's going to be an awesome game. I'm hoping that Minnesota can put together a full 4 quarters and not have that like 5-minute stretch where everything goes wrong across all 3 phases of the game. But we're the Vikings, you never know. But I'm trying to be more optimistic this year.
It is a revenge spot for the Packers, though. It's dangerous.
How about you, Andy?
Yeah, first of all, Minnesota back to a 1-point favorite just right now. I just checked it.
So they're flipped back.
They're flipped back. Yeah, flipped back to Minnesota.
Chaos.
It was obviously Green Bay.
They heard my prediction.
Now it's there. You go. Part of me wants to be and say it's going to be the first tie of the season because we haven't seen one yet. Like, can we go the whole season without a tie? And it just would feel so fitting. Like, just kind of screw over both teams somehow.
Yeah, right.
But I'll go. I'll go 26-24 Packers. Bizarro score. Green Bay misses an extra point, gets a few. I don't know how it works, but 26-24 Green Bay. I don't feel super confident about it, but I'll say 26-24 Green Bay.
I don't think anyone. I think anyone who does feel confident about it probably just is a little bit out
hope.
there. Yeah. They're way too much hope. But Andy, we really appreciate you coming on, man. I know it's a busy time of the year, and this is just such a big game, and it's been a pleasure having you. Do you want to give everyone a little shout out to where they can catch you?
Hey, you can find me on the Pack a Day podcast 365 days a year, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, YouTube channel as well. And you can find me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Yeah, he does great stuff, guys. So go check him out. I mean,
Andy,
I'm sure if you're listening to
Oshkosh.
us, you've heard of Andy.
You're an Oshkosh Titan, aren't you?
I am a Oshkosh Titan, yes. So I graduated from UWO, Osh Vegas, if you will.
Hughes chocolate or Oaks chocolate?
I don't know that I ever had either, which is
I've
always been a Cerrugi's guy. I've always been a Cerrugi's guy. The Oaks is they sell the candy bars for fundraisers, right?
Yeah. I've heard that those are the two like very good chocolate brands out in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Yes, I think I've had Oaks for sure. I don't think I've ever had the other one, but I can't cheat on Cerrugi's. Cerrugi's is that one in Green Bay. The peanut butter melt away is the most insane thing I've ever had in my life, so I can't cheat on Cerrugi's.
That's a good answer.
Andy Herman,
check it out.
loyal to chocolate, loyal to his Packers. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Andy.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.